My focus for today's video is going to be a little different. If you've watched any of my Memory Unlocked videos, you'll know that my focus has largely been on set events and why they wound up sticking with me. What I'm looking at today isn't so much an event, but an aspect of the game that is woven throughout the experience. The game I'm looking at today is Bastion, the indie action RPG from 2011. The focus is on the ever-present narration that occurs in the game. From the opening moment, you hear an elderly man say,
"The story's supposed to start at the beginning. Ain't so simple with this one."
This opening starts off your story, and what's fascinating is that as you progress through the levels and even take certain actions, you'll hear more narration. It is a constant companion throughout the game, and one that really elevated Bastion above other games in the genre. Since the narration exists throughout the game, this can't be distilled down into a single moment to talk about. Even so, it is an aspect of Bastion that sticks with me and is enjoyable every time I play through the game, which has probably been about 4 or 5 times as of this video. As I was thinking about this aspect of the game, I wondered why I enjoyed this so much. What is it exactly about the narration that's so memorable? And here's the answer that I came up with. I've been playing games a long time. One of the biggest weaknesses of games has been the divide of story and gameplay. I mean, early video games were pretty much purely gameplay, and even as story developed over the years, they were often very shallow stories and gameplay was still the main emphasis of those early console years. As story became more and more of an element in some games, this divide still existed. I'm sure many of us have played games where there are periods of gameplay, but then find ourselves in a cutscene or dialogue section of the game that can go on for significant periods of time. This is usually to develop a part of the story in a significant way, but the two aspects are kept at least somewhat separate. I think that's a big part of why I like the narration in Bastion so much. It is a way of connecting gameplay and story together in a very tight way. The story is being told as you're playing it. There may be extra details to listen to as you're battling, and it helps move the story along at a nice pace. While there are times where even Bastion has an event that takes more of a focus and is separate from the gameplay, they're not usually very long, and I think the narration helps keep these moments from being longer because we often have some of the background already. Add in the fact that the narration adds little flourishes to comment on what you're doing in the game at times, and it just really does a good job at making you feel like you're a part of the story, even in the gameplay sections. I think this ability to achieve that connection and do it well is part of what made the narration such a memorable part of the game for me. While I do think that's the bulk of why I enjoyed it so much, I also think that it was just really well done. It's a good framing device and one that you don't see that often in video games. It was also just really well executed in terms of voice work and not being super repetitive like some voice lines or sound effects can tend to be in video games. While this wasn't a specific moment, the narration of Bastion was a memorable part of the game for me. I honestly don't think it would be quite the same or as good without it. While there are more things that I find memorable about Bastion, the narrator telling the story of the kid is one of the first things that comes to mind about the game. How about you? If you've played Bastion, is this a part that you remember fondly? I feel like it is a part of what made Bastion as popular as it was, but I imagine that not everyone loved this aspect as much as I did. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments to continue to talk about this aspect of a game that I especially love. That's all for this video though, so I'll see you in the next one.